or to school in the morning. But generally you trust that they are heading to the best learning environment. Yet for many families in high poverty school systems, there is often a nagging, heart-wrenching feeling that the schools we send our children to are simply do not have the resources they need to meet all the student needs. We've become complacent as a Commonwealth in accepting that certain schools would just have worse results. Mainly schools with a high share of students from low-income homes with a high share of students of color. We see traces of the legacy of Jim Crow, Virginia, and deliberate disinvestment in communities of color in this complacency. Our children in Henrico, like so many other localities across the state, live with the generational trauma and effects of deliberate segregation sanctioned by racist policy decisions in Virginia. Undoing the legacy begins with empathy. It begins with looking through the lenses of parents in the under-resourced communities and asking, how would you feel sending your child to a school that you know does not have the resources it needs to meet all of the student needs? It begins with recognizing the harm inflicted on communities of color in Virginia over generations and the additional resources needed for students in these communities to be on the same level playing field. It begins by acknowledging that an entire set of policies are not working for numerous communities in our state. Some of these policies include an upside-down tax code, insufficient state revenue collection, and ultimately less funding our highest poverty schools compared to our lowest poverty schools. Choosing to make piecemeal investments in our schools is choosing to allow the legacy of segregation and racism in state policy to persist. Choosing to allow powerful corporations and the wealthy few in our state to get away with not paying their fair share is choosing them over our kids' future. We do not have to live with these choices as a Commonwealth. We can have schools that meet all of our children's needs, pathways for people to get out of poverty, and create thriving communities that we all want to live in. The legislation put forth by Delegate Ayer and Senator McCullen this session to meet with the Virginia Board of Education's prescribed standard of quality is precisely the type of bold legislation needed to seriously address the injustices we see in our educational system. I implore lawmakers to be bold over the coming year and to find the courage to both support legislation that put forth by Delegate Eric and Senator McCullen this year. I encourage lawmakers to look to raise funding to do so and not on the backs of those who can least afford it through regressive taxes, but instead through progressive measures that ask those of us who can most afford to and have benefit from the fruits of our educated workforce to do so. Thank you, and please fund our schools for our children's sake and the future of our state. Thank you.